The crack of a Winchester rifle
Are
split the
you
morning air
all
like
right,
thunder.
miss?
Michael Stone crouched behind his chestnut
You
stallion,
took quite
eyes
a
narrowed against the
tumble,
rising
eh?
sun. 50 yards ahead, a horse thief scrambled for cover, blood seeping from his shoulder. Stone's shot had found its mark, not to kill, but to stop. "Billy Jenkins," Stone muttered, recognizing the wounded man. "Riding Sullivan's brand now, are we?" The town of Redemption stirred at the gunshot. Doors cracked open. Faces peered from windows. They knew that sound. They knew the man who made it. Stone approached the thief with measured steps, spurs jingling with each footfall. At 45, his face was a map of hardship. A jagged scar ran from his right eye to his jaw, a souvenir from Gettysburg. His eyes, steel blue and unflinching, had seen death in its many forms across battlefields and dusty streets. "Please, Sheriff," Billy whimpered. "Frank Sullivan said the horse was payment. I didn't." "Save it." Stone cut him off, hauling the man to his feet. "Sullivan doesn't own what isn't his." The rising sun cast long shadows across Redemption's main street as Stone marched his prisoner toward the jailhouse. The town had grown since he'd arrived 5 years ago. Saloons, a bank, a general store. Progress, they called it. Stone wasn't so sure. Inside his office, Stone removed his worn cavalry hat, revealing salt and pepper hair cropped military short. The silver star on his chest caught the morning light, a symbol of authority in a land where law was still finding its footing. "You fought for the Union, didn't you?" Billy asked, nursing his wound. Stone didn't answer. The war was behind him. Captain Michael Stone of the 4th Michigan Cavalry existed only in nightmares now. After burying his wife 3 winters ago, the badge and the ranch were all he had left. His thoughts were interrupted by commotion outside. Frank Sullivan's voice boomed across the street. Stone stepped onto the boardwalk and witnessed a scene that made his blood run cold. Frank Sullivan, 50, bloated from whiskey and self-importance, had a young woman by the arm, his stepdaughter, Emily Morgan. Her dress was torn at the shoulder, a bruise forming on her cheek. Stone had seen her around town, quiet, head down, always in Sullivan's shadow. "You embarrassed me in front of my associates," Sullivan roared, shoving her against a hitching post. "You forget who feeds you, girl." Something stirred in Stone as he watched. Not just duty, something deeper. "That's enough, Sullivan," Stone called out, hand resting on his Colt. Sullivan turned, eyes narrowing. "Mind your business, lawman. This is family matters. Not when it happens on my street." Stone crossed the distance between them in measured strides. Emily's eyes met his, defiant yet fearful. There was something familiar in those eyes, something that sent his mind reeling back to a field hospital in Virginia, 1864. A nurse with those same eyes, bandaging his wounds, whispering words of comfort as cannon fire shook the earth. "Morgan," he said, the name escaping his lips before he could stop it. "Your mother was Sarah Morgan?" Emily's eyes widened. "You knew my mother?" Before she could answer, Sullivan grabbed her arm. "She's nothing but ungrateful trash, just like her mother was. Now I've got business with Maxwell and—" "Let her go," Stone said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, "or lose the hand." Sullivan hesitated, then released Emily with a shove. "This isn't your concern, Stone. In Redemption, Sullivan is the law, not some broken soldier playing sheriff." He stormed off, leaving Emily trembling. Stone offered her his handkerchief for her split lip. "Your mother saved my life at Cold Harbor," he said quietly. "I never got to thank her." Emily dabbed at her lip. "She died 2 years ago. Fever. I'm sorry. She was a good woman." Night fell across Redemption like a shroud. Stone sat on his porch, cleaning his revolver by lamplight. His thoughts kept returning to Emily Morgan and those eyes so like her mother's. Across town, in Sullivan's sprawling house, cards were dealt and whiskey poured. Frank Sullivan's luck had run dry. The stack of bills and deeds before him had dwindled to nothing. Across the table sat James Maxwell, railroad investor, land speculator, and the man who held Sullivan's debts. "I'm afraid you've nothing left to wager, Frank," Maxwell said, his voice smooth as aged bourbon. Sullivan's eyes darted to the staircase, where Emily stood frozen. "I have one thing left." Maxwell followed his gaze, a slow smile spreading across his face. At 40, his neatly trimmed beard couldn't hide the cruelty in his eyes. "The Morgan girl, she's a fine-looking woman. Take her as wife, and we'll call it even," Sullivan slurred. Emily backed away, horror spreading across her face. "No!" Sullivan lunged for her, caught her by the hair. "You'll do as I say, girl." Their struggle carried them out into the night, toward the river that cut through the eastern edge of town. Emily fought like a wildcat, but Sullivan's drunken rage lent him strength. "I took you in when no one wanted you," he snarled, dragging her to the riverbank. "And this is how you repay me?" Emily clawed at his hands. "Please, I'm begging you." Sullivan looked down at her, contempt twisting his features. "If you can't serve me, then you're nothing but a burden." With that, he hurled her into the swift current, her scream cut short as the dark water closed over her head. Stone had been making his nightly rounds when he heard the commotion. He reached the riverbank just in time to see Emily disappear beneath the surface. Without hesitation, he tossed aside his gun belt and plunged into the frigid water. The current was strong, threatening to pull them both under. Stone fought against it, his lungs burning, until his hand caught fabric. Emily's limp form surfaced against his chest. With powerful strokes, he pulled them both to shore, laying her gently on the riverbank. She wasn't breathing. Stone turned her onto her side, pounding her back until water spewed from her mouth and she drew a ragged breath. Her eyes fluttered open, recognition slowly dawning. "Sheriff Stone?" "Just breathe, Miss Morgan," he said, wrapping his coat around her trembling shoulders. "You're safe now." Emily Morgan awoke to unfamiliar surroundings, a simple cabin with rough-hewn logs and modest furnishings. She lay on a narrow bed covered with a patchwork quilt. Her body ached with every breath. Stone stood at the stove, his back to her, preparing coffee. The cabin smelled of pine and wood smoke. "This is your home?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Stone turned, nodding. "My ranch is just beyond that ridge. Thought it safer to bring you here." He handed her a steaming mug, then began tending to the cuts on her arms with gentle efficiency. His hands, calloused from years of labor and gunplay, moved with surprising tenderness. "You have medical training," she observed. "Field medicine," he replied. "You learn fast in war or you don't survive." As he worked, Emily studied the cabin, a soldier's quarters, sparse but orderly. A framed daguerreotype on the table caught her eye. A woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile. "Your wife?" she asked. Stone nodded once, his jaw tightening. "Typhoid took her 3 years ago." Emily's gaze fell on a wooden chest in the corner, partially open to reveal the blue uniform of a Union officer. "You knew my mother during the war," she said. Stone bandaged her wrist before answering. "Battle of Cold Harbor. I took Confederate grape shot in the chest. The surgeons had given up on me. Your mother hadn't." He paused. "She talked about you. Said she had a little girl waiting back home in Pennsylvania." Emily's eyes welled with tears. "After she died, I had nowhere to go. Frank offered to take me in. I thought—" She trailed off, the bitter irony hanging in the air. Stone's expression darkened. "Sullivan will answer for what he did. The law." "The law?" Emily laughed bitterly. "Frank owns half the businesses in town. The other half fear him." Stone rose, determination hardening his features. "We'll see about that." The next morning, Stone rode into redemption alone, the silver star on his chest catching the sun. He tied his horse outside the courthouse and strode inside. boots echoing against hardwood floors. Judge Wilson looked up from his desk, surprise giving way to wariness. "Sheriff Stone, what brings you here so early?" "I'm here about Frank Sullivan," Stone said, placing his hands on the judge's desk. "Last night he attempted to murder his stepdaughter, Emily Morgan. I'm filing charges." Wilson removed his spectacles, cleaning them slowly. "That's a serious accusation, Sheriff. Do you have witnesses?" "I witnessed it myself. Pulled the girl from the river with my own hands." "Ah," Wilson replaced his glasses. "Well, in matters of family, the court prefers not to interfere. Perhaps the young lady slipped." "Perhaps." "She didn't slip," Stone interrupted. "Sullivan threw her in, and I aim to see him answer for it." The judge sighed. "Sheriff, be reasonable. Mr. Sullivan is an important man in this community. His associate, Mr. Maxwell, has plans for redemption, railroad plans, progress. Surely one unfortunate domestic incident." Stone leaned forward. "Judge, either you issue a warrant for Sullivan's arrest, or I'll arrest him myself." "I'm afraid I can't allow that." Wilson opened his drawer, removing a document. "In fact, I've been authorized to relieve you of your duties, effective immediately." "By whose authority?" "The town council voted last night. Your badge, please." Stone stared at the judge, realization dawning. "Maxwell, how much did he pay you?" Wilson's face reddened. "That's enough, Stone. Your badge and your gun." Slowly, Stone unpinned the star from his chest. He unbuckled his gun belt but stopped short of handing it over. "The badge you can have," he said, his voice cold as mountain ice. "The gun stays with me." He turned and walked out, ignoring Wilson's protests. Outside, he mounted his horse and rode toward his ranch, rage building with each hoofbeat. As he crested the hill overlooking his cabin, Stone reined in sharply. 3 horses were tied outside, Sullivan's men. He dismounted, drawing his revolver, and approached on foot through the pines. Inside the cabin, 2 men were ransacking his belongings, while a third held Emily at gunpoint. She caught sight of Stone through the window, her expression carefully neutral. Stone reached the side of the cabin unseen. He retrieved his Winchester .73 from its hiding place beneath the porch floorboards. Checking the loading gate, he chambered around. "Looking for something, boys?" he called out. Gunfire erupted from inside, bullets splintering the logs near his head. Stone rolled to cover behind the water trough, raised his rifle and fired twice. A pained cry told him he'd hit his mark. Emily seized the moment of confusion, driving her elbow into her captor's stomach. As he doubled over, Stone burst through the door, rifle raised. 2 shots rang out in quick succession. When the smoke cleared, 2 of Sullivan's men lay dead. The third raised his hands in surrender. "Tell Sullivan if he wants the girl, he'll have to come himself," Stone said, binding the man's hands with rawhide. "And tell Maxwell his judge couldn't take my gun." As dusk approached, Stone and Emily prepared to leave. The ranch wasn't safe anymore. "Where will we go?" Emily asked, mounting the spare horse Stone had saddled for her. "Silver Creek," he replied, checking his saddlebags. "I have a friend there. Richard Blackwood runs the Frontier Saloon." They rode through twilight into darkness, taking the mountain trail to avoid main roads. As they made camp beneath towering pines, Stone taught Emily how to build a fire, how to listen to the forest. "Sleep," he told her. "I'll keep watch." But sleep didn't come easily. In the dancing firelight, Emily studied her protector, the weathered face, the vigilant eyes that scanned the darkness. A man haunted by ghosts, yet standing firm against the storm. "Why are you helping me?" she finally asked. Stone stared into the flames. "Because it's right," he said simply. Then after a pause, "And because I couldn't save your mother." Before dawn, they were awakened by the soft crunch of moccasins on pine needles. Stone's hand flew to his revolver as dark figures emerged from the forest. Apache warriors, their faces painted for war. "Easy," Stone whispered to Emily, slowly rising to his feet. The lead warrior stepped forward, bow half drawn. "Blue coat," he said in halting English. Stone straightened, recognition dawning. "Running elk." The tension broke. The Apache lowered his bow, a rare smile crossing his weathered face. "Many winters. Stone who speaks truth." Stone explained to a bewildered Emily. "During the war, I served with Apache scouts. Running Elk's people were being forced from their lands. I helped them negotiate with the army." Running Elk's expression darkened. "White men come again. Take land. Say railroad comes." Stone exchanged glances with Emily. "Maxwell?" The Apache nodded. "Man with beard and black hat. Speaks with forked tongue." Running Elk invited them to his camp, where Stone learned the full extent of Maxwell's plans. The investor wasn't just after Sullivan's land or Emily's hand. He was orchestrating the seizure of Apache lands in every homestead from Redemption to the territorial border. "The railroad will make him rich," Stone explained to Emily as they sat by the Apache campfire. "And Sullivan was just another pawn." Emily's face hardened in the firelight. "Then we stop him." Stone looked at her with newfound respect. Sarah Morgan's daughter indeed. Silver Creek emerged from the morning mist like a mirage, a bustling town twice the size of Redemption. Stone and Emily rode down the main street, past saloons and trading posts busy with miners and travelers. The Frontier Saloon stood at the town center, its ornate facade a testament to its prosperity. Inside, beyond the tables of poker and roulette, Richard Blackwood held court. At 50, with an eye patch and cavalry bearing, he was every inch the retired soldier turned businessman. "Michael Stone," he boomed, embracing his old comrade. "Last I heard, you were playing sheriff in some backwater." Stone introduced Emily, briefly explaining their situation. Blackwood's expression darkened as he listened. "Maxwell, eh? That snake's been trying to buy land here too. Claims the railroad's coming through." He spat into a brass spittoon. "Come, we'll talk privately." In Blackwood's office, Stone outlined what they'd learned from the Apache. Maxwell wasn't just a businessman. He was building an empire through intimidation and fraud. "I need men," Stone said. "Good men who can handle themselves." Blackwood nodded slowly. "I know a few, veterans mostly, men who owe me, or you, a favor." While Blackwood gathered allies, Emily discovered something unexpected in the saloon's records room. A ledger with her mother's name. Sarah Morgan had loaned money to several families in Redemption, loans that Maxwell had somehow acquired after her death. "He's been squeezing these families for years," Emily realized, showing Stone the ledger. "Using my mother's good name to take their land." Stone's jaw tightened. "Then we have him on fraud as well as attempted murder." That evening, Emily asked Stone to teach her to shoot. "I won't be helpless again," she said firmly. Stone hesitated, then handed her his spare Remington. "First lesson, respect the weapon." In the fading light behind the saloon, he showed her how to stand, how to grip the revolver, how to squeeze rather than pull the trigger. "Breathe out as you fire," he instructed, adjusting her stance. "The gun is part of you, not separate." Emily's first shot went wide. Her second clipped the edge of the bottle target. Her third shattered it. Stone nodded with approval. "Your mother had good aim, too." By week's end, Stone had assembled his force. 6 men, all veterans, all with reason to distrust Maxwell's brand of progress. They rode for Redemption at dawn, guns oiled, determination set. The town had changed in their absence. Maxwell's men patrolled the streets openly. The saloons were closed, the storefronts boarded. Fear hung in the air like gun smoke. Stone split his men into teams, sending them to secure key positions around town. He and Emily approached the jailhouse cautiously, finding it deserted. "Where's Billy Jenkins?" Stone asked the frightened deputy they discovered hiding in the cells. "Maxwell took him," the young man stammered. "Said he was making an example." A commotion drew them to the town square. There a crowd had gathered around a hastily constructed gallows. Maxwell stood on the platform, revolver in hand, while Frank Sullivan knelt before him, beaten and bloodied. "This is what happens to those who betray our vision for redemption," Maxwell announced, pressing the gun to Sullivan's temple. Stone stepped from the crowd, Winchester raised. "It's over, Maxwell." The investor turned, surprise giving way to a cold smile. "Sheriff Stone, or should I say former sheriff, I was wondering when you'd return." His eyes fell on Emily. "And Miss Morgan, your stepfather has been most concerned." Sullivan looked up, his face a mask of bruises. "Emily," he croaked, "he lied to me. All of it. The railroad, the investments." Maxwell kicked him silent. "Frank doesn't appreciate progress. Neither, it seems, do you?" Stone advanced steadily. "Your kind of progress leaves too many bodies, Maxwell." Maxwell raised his hand. Instantly, gunmen appeared on rooftops and balconies surrounding the square. "I have 20 men to your, what, 6? You're outmatched, Stone." "Maybe," Stone acknowledged, "but how many will you lose before we're done? And will you be among them?" A tense silence fell over the square. Then from the edge of town came the distinctive war cry of Apache warriors. Running Elk had kept his promise. Chaos erupted. Stone's men opened fire from their positions as Apache arrows found targets on the rooftops. Maxwell's men, caught in crossfire, began to fall. Stone charged the gallows, dispatching 2 gunmen with precision shots. Maxwell dragged Sullivan as a shield toward the livery stables. Emily, separated from Stone in the confusion, spotted Maxwell making his escape. She followed, Remington in hand, determination in every step. Stone cut through the alley, intercepting Maxwell as he mounted his horse. Sullivan lay forgotten in the dirt. "It's finished," Stone said, rifle aimed at Maxwell's chest. "Not quite." Maxwell jerked his head toward the river. There, Emily stood at the edge of the dock, a gunman holding her hostage. "A trade, Stone. The girl for my freedom." Stone lowered his rifle fractionally. Maxwell smiled, sensing victory, and spurred his horse toward the river. The gunman forced Emily onto a small flatboat, pushing off into the current as Maxwell approached. Stone followed at a distance, staying out of sight along the riverbank. When Maxwell reached the dock, he dismounted, triumphant. "Bring her to shore," he ordered the gunman. "Not until I see my money," the man countered. Their argument gave Stone his opening. He raised his Winchester, aiming carefully, and fired. The gunman crumpled, falling overboard. The flatboat drifted, now out of control in the current. Emily struggled to grab the pole as Maxwell leveled his revolver at her from the dock. "You've cost me everything, girl." Stone emerged from cover, firing. His shot caught Maxwell in the shoulder, spinning him around. Emily seized the moment, driving the pole into Maxwell's chest. Both tumbled into the river, the current dragging them toward the rapids. Stone raced along the bank, diving into the water when he saw Emily surface, coughing and struggling. Maxwell, too, fought against the current, his face contorted with rage and fear. In that moment, Stone faced an impossible choice: pursue Maxwell or save Emily. There was no choice at all. He struck out toward Emily, powerful strokes carrying him to her side. He pulled her toward shore as Maxwell disappeared around the bend, the roar of the rapids drowning out his final curses. On the riverbank, Emily collapsed against Stone's chest. "Is it over?" Stone looked toward town, where gunfire had given way to an eerie silence. "Not quite. But Maxwell won't trouble us again." They returned to find redemption in transition. Maxwell's men had surrendered or fled. Sullivan, broken and repentant, confessed to his role in Maxwell's schemes. "He promised me wealth beyond imagining," the beaten man told Stone. "All I had to do was drive people from their land. When I couldn't pay my debts, he wanted Emily, said she was payment and would be his wife." Stone looked at him with cold contempt. "You'll stand trial for attempted murder, Sullivan. Pray the judge is more merciful than I would be." In the days that followed, order returned to redemption. Judge Wilson resigned in disgrace. The town council, purged of Maxwell's influence, reinstated Stone as sheriff. The Apache were guaranteed protection from further encroachment. At the Founders' Day celebration that autumn, Stone stood on the steps of the newly built courthouse, the silver star once again on his chest. Beside him stood Emily, no longer the frightened girl he'd pulled from the river, but a woman with her mother's strength and her own hard-won confidence. "This town was built on honest work and fair dealing," Stone told the gathered citizens, "and that's how it will remain." As the crowd dispersed, Emily touched his arm. "What now, Sheriff?" Stone looked out over the town, then back to the woman beside him. "Now we build something worth protecting." On the distant horizon, storm clouds gathered. Somewhere beyond them, if rumors were true, James Maxwell had survived the rapids, and men like him never forgot a defeat. But that was tomorrow's fight. Today, redemption had come to redemption. "Justice isn't always delivered by courts or laws," Stone told a young deputy later that evening. "Sometimes it comes from the barrel of a gun in the hands of a man willing to stand for what's right." In the fading light, Emily placed flowers on a small marker she'd erected for her mother. Sarah Morgan's memory would live on in the town her daughter helped save. And if Maxwell or others like him returned, well, as Stone often said, the frontier had its own kind of justice.